Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ward. There are no minutes to approve, so the first,
Madam Clerk, I have a comment on the adoption of the agenda.
I don't believe we're taking comment on
Well,
procedural.
there was an item that was on the original agenda that was removed without explanation, so I'd like the explanation for why that was. The item that was originally removed on the agenda was purchases of products, services exceeding $100,000 for which City Commission approval has not been obtained. That item was on the original agenda and then just miraculously disappeared without explanation.
Okay, so the first order of business will be item 21081. Oh, I'm sorry.
You might want to let him fill in there.
Yeah, I was about to say chair, but since we don't have a chair to the group, we would like to remove item 210817, the investment management update, from the agenda. There is information with which we would like to augment that report. It's not time sensitive, so we wanted to remove it and bring it back at a later date.
I'd like to modify the motion to remove item 210817.
I'm comfortable with that as a second. Aye.
Passes 3-0. First business item 210819, discuss the structure and scheduling of the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, Clerk. I think we should appoint a chair and vice chair as the first item. I don't know if anybody has any wants or not. Commissioner Ward, you're in the middle right now, so I don't know if you would like to be chair and.
I'm willing to serve.
Commissioner Sacco, do you want to be vice chair?
Sure.
Okay. I will move that we appoint Commissioner Ward as chair and Commissioner Sacco as vice chair of the Finance Committee.
Second.
If anyone would like to comment on the item?
My name's Donald Shepard. I'm the People's Representative, so I call myself and try to do my best to represent. And in representing, we have further documents from all their audit information that had been brought into our finance board prior to this meeting in 2001 to 2023. Of information is supposed to take and be actual. So, am I speaking about the right stuff?
No, we're talking about, okay, sorry.
I think you can.
The motion was to appoint a chair and vice chair. That's what
Okay.
you're to speak to.
I would like to see that done, but I would like to see more qualified people in those positions. I don't know if we have that, Mr. Hayes, Santos, I don't know if we had that kind of people here in the city hall, but if so, they should be here, to address this, not commissioners, because, this here document of APR, allocation procedures and other implemented documents that have been, shown in Purvis Gray. I mean,
So you need to keep this to the
But,
the
so-
appointment of the chair and vice chair.
So I'd vote no on that, because if we don't have anybody, then we need to direct it to that. So I guess that's it for me at this time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nathan Scott. So with respect to the motion related to discuss structure and scheduling of the Finance Committee for fiscal year FY22. I do want to add that the Audit Committee found it important enough to have independent expertise on their committee that was external appointment to the board. I think the Finance Committee should equally have independent representation from a subject matter expert to guide it in helping manage the decisions made herein. Not sure why that isn't the case, but I will say this: there are many taxpayers, including myself, that are dismayed at the fiscal mismanagement of the city of Gainesville, and you guys have a fiduciary duty as commissioners. I mean, management oversight is a key function that has been negligently neglected by the city commission, as evidenced by the state audit report and other aspects. So I would encourage in the formation of this and structure of this committee to get some independent expertise to sit up on the dais with you and help make some more well-informed decisions. Someone that actually reads the documents that comes before the commission, that can speak intelligently. I mean, Mr. Monk did an excellent job on the audit committee the other day of pointing out the obvious that has been neglected. I mean, citizens have made you aware of those issues for, years, but you guys choose to ignore the truth, and then boom, you wonder why you got the adverse audit findings in the state audit report that came out that basically are everything that the public has been telling you. So again, I would encourage some independent expertise. And it's interesting that we're allowed to comment on this motion, but weren't allowed to comment on the adoption of the agenda that had changes. I mean, I don't think that's appropriate either, not to have public participation. Thank you.
I'll also say if there's anyone attending in the Zoom meeting who would like to make a public comment on this item, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and you'll be recognized. I don't see anyone waiting at the moment. So all in favor of the motion to appoint Commissioner Ward as chair of the committee and Commissioner Sacco as vice chair?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Chair?
Clerk.
Thank you.
Staying on item 210819, I'd like to ask the auditor to come up and any of the other staff, if you have thoughts on the frequency that you need from us to meet, I think it's appropriate that we hear that now.
Thank you, Chair Ward, committee members. I think the frequency that you've already established is once a month for the first year and then play it by ear after that. I think it's important to not only get financial activity reports from general government and the utility, but also as departments are vetting projects and financial information is a key deciding point, those could be appropriate items to come up. So I believe the general government finance and utility finance liaisons might need some direction on what you would like to see from them. I think they have a couple of items they wanted to bring forth today. Miami Beach and I believe the city of Hollywood have are good examples of robust finance committee discussion items that you could look at as examples. Also, I'd like to ask if Ms. Kessler might help them with the agenda and who's going to do what. Maybe if you are publishing the agenda, I think there's a little confusion on which of the liaisons is going to post what items. So if they each posted their own items and maybe Ms. Kessler could publish the agenda, that would work well. Is there anything else I can answer at this moment?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, the typical practice of the clerk's office is to compile the agenda items and to publish the agenda. We do appreciate having an identified staff liaison or point person from whatever relevant departments to help, provide the subject matter.
So, Ms. Ramos, I assume you'll be the liaison for general government? Mark, okay, yeah. Okay, Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chair.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I apologize.
Sure.
get my thoughts. I do believe, I think we're set it monthly now, is that correct? I think that's a good place to start. As far as items, I think the current items that went to audit and finance and having the finance versions coming here, the quarterly budgets and all of that. I do think that in a lot of other cities, the finance committees are involved in the budget preparation as well and vetting things, and that's something that we have, I think, struggled with as far as when I've been on the commission. I think since we moved away from subcommittees system, so I think having this committee kind of helping along the way as we move through the budgetary process, so that there is kind of some commission input and making sure kind of what's coming has at least some feedback before it goes to the full commission. So those are items that I would like for us to see, and I think as we move through the budgetary season, I mean, I think there may be times where if it's getting crunchy, we may have to have like more meetings, but maybe after the budget, it could be further apart. So I think we play it as a year, but thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll agree with Commissioner Santos on, I do think we should continue doing the quarterly reports just to see. I do know that I personally believe that if you know your history, you kind of know where you're going. So if we see how we've done in the past year, we've seen what has been cyclical, what have been outstanding issues that just kind of pop up. We can better prepare and cushion our budget as needed. But I do want us going forward to be the committee that is kind of the precursor to the commission looking at that budget for the next year. Our colleagues entrusted us to this position, so I'd like to think that kind of like the voters entrust us, the commission entrusted us. So it keeps going to sift through what we'll like that budget to look like, at least in a grand scheme. And to give staff access in everybody present forum without chasing down every commissioner or taking up an entire meeting. So I think this would be the appropriate forum. As for, I think once a month is fine. If we do need more meetings during budget season, I would defer that choice to staff, not necessarily us. We all have opinions on the budget year round, not just in budget season, but I do think the finance department is the one that would have the most say in whether we need to call another meeting for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Chair. I think in working with the chair, I mean, the chair, I think that's an important thing for the chair to be involved in agenda management and calling the meetings and all of that. I think that's an important aspect that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So yes, as we'll start off with a framework of monthly meetings, and then if staff needs to add something, we're happy to hear that. Mr. Benton, if you want to come on, you're welcome to participate as well. And we will do that coordinated with the staff liaisons and myself as chair and the clerk's office.
I just wanted to make sure that my understanding was clear. You spoke about the budget several times, and Mr. Chair, as you're aware, GRU has, I think, 7 scheduled budget presentations on specific topics with a full commission, and then another 7 with the UAB. And we're, as you know, we're meeting individually one-on-one with each commissioner prior to those presentations to go over the detail. So am I understanding correctly that this committee wants to see those presentations as well, so that this group would see those? Essentially, you'd be seeing the same material 3 times. If we bring them here, you'd be seeing them in the one-on-ones, you'd be seeing them at the committee meeting, you'd be seeing them at the full commission presentation. So I just, if that's your desire, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Mr. Benton. So I don't want to think of it as seeing the material 3 times. I do feel bad for you guys in that sense. But I see this committee speaking on it, or seeing at least portions of it, as a second opportunity to kind of sift through the material and get opinions on what we think on it. So if it comes prior to the meetings with the whole commission, I think it would be helpful that we kind of get that opportunity to already think out loud and have that conversation and discussion with each other as a precursor to the larger conversation with the commission. So we can meet. I love meeting with you guys all day, but I can't then sit down and ask the chair what he thinks about certain items going forward or in that particular budget cycle. So I don't see it so much as triple presentation for the sake of it. But in my mind, the logistics are you meet with us, and then there's the meeting eventually with the whole commission. In between, this committee sees it, so we can have that precursory conversation.
And Mr. Chair, that's what I wanted to clarify. So you'd like to have the one-on-ones with the presentation, and then presentation or discussion at the committee level in between the meetings with the full commission.
I won't ask that you ever like redo the whole presentation, because you're thorough on the one-on-ones, but my vision is more that just rather than call a sunshine meeting, we already have this forum, make it one of the items.
Okay, but-
Yes, sir.
So my thoughts on that are similar, but I think the detail is after you meet with us individually, then we have the opportunity to call out specific pieces as we go forward. So the chronology would be individually, then an opportunity to have a discussion at this committee before going to the commission.
So
I would not want you to have to do 28 different presentations.
I couldn't imagine that you wanted to hear me speak 3 times on the same
I'm happy
issue.
to
So-
hear you talk.
Yeah, I'm- So you'll direct us then as to which pieces you want to discuss at the committee level.
I think that's the Commissioner Santos. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think as items are going to go before the committee or before the full commission, have those same things on this committee, and then maybe we won't see the full presentation depending on, but we can kind of delve into those questions. So I think have those items on here, and then we can ask questions and kind of go through it. Maybe we don't need to go through the full presentation depending on what it is, but I think that will it's on there, and then we can ask questions.
So it's an agenda item existing, and then we can,
Put the presentation on as backup as an agenda item, and
Yes,
then you can
exactly.
direct us as to what you'd like to discuss.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you.
thank you. So this is, as the very first meeting of this committee and this process in the history of the commission, this is going to be an evolving process. You know, how can we, as a committee, be of use to staff, to the rest of the commission, to our neighbors? And we're going to work through, I think, how that best works over the next several months. And then next year, we will have lessons learned. The next committee will have lessons learned from this year. And I think it will be useful for staff as well as for the full commission, to pick out individual things that are of concern perhaps, and to give some better direction. And again, that you all as staff can address to a subset of the commission rather than one commissioner at a time kind of grasping in the dark about what all of us are interested in. So that's my hope for this. So we don't need necessarily a motion on this. We're already scheduled. We'll move forward. Madam Clerk.
So no vote, so no further comments. So the next business item, item 210806, financial modeling and forecasting presentation.
Thank you. And that's going to be Ms. Fiore. Okay.
Good afternoon, Karen Fiore, Budget Manager.
Welcome.
Thank you. Today we have Kyle Stevens with us from Stantec Consultant Services. Kyle will be modeling some different financial scenarios within 5 of our major funds: the General Fund, Stormwater, Solid Waste, RTS, and the Building Fund. And so on each of these scenarios, we'll be able to see the short-term and long-term impacts for each of these funds. And potentially what you're seeing today, you may want to have one of these scenarios implemented during the fiscal year 23 budget cycle. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Kyle.
Before we get started,
Oh,
Commissioner
sure.
Santos, you wanted to?
Yeah, sorry, it was just on something on the previous item, and I know that we had on the general government side, a splitting between budget and finance in terms of, so I don't know if I guess this is for the city manager, a question to her, is general government going to have 2 liaisons coming from each office, or one person who's going to be responsible for both budget and finance coming to the committee? I don't know.
Cynthia Ramos, Finance Director. I probably will be the liaison, and we'll coordinate with budget whenever items need to come on.
All right, thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ms. Vera. Yeah. Oh, okay. Did, you want to weigh in before we get moving there?
Thank you, Chair, committee members. I would expect that the Finance Committee, over time, it might not be this year, but this would be the main place where budget discussions happen. And I think one reason why it ended up on the audit plan this year is because the general government finance director and the utility chief financial officer work really hard on their budgets, but commissioners don't always see an aggregated picture. So it would really help to have the budget discussions happening at Finance Committee. I just wanted to add that.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Now, we'll give it another shot.
So I see Kyle is online with us. Welcome, Kyle.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, welcome.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. What I have is a presentation for you today of some of the work we've conducted for the city of Gainesville over about the last 6 to 7 months, where we've been conducting financial forecasting efforts on a number of the enterprise funds. Just to give you a little background, and you can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just to give you a little background on Stantec and our team, we are management consultants that help a number of communities throughout the United States with services such as utility rate studies, financial forecasting. So this is really our bread and butter, what you'll see today, looking at a certain community, different enterprise funds, and forecasting those dynamics out in the ball, creating a crystal ball, if you will, as best we can to determine the financial future of the enterprise fund and the dynamics that are in play. And I'll give you an interactive example of what that looks like today. But we do serve roughly 30% of the US population with our services over the last few years. On my team as well today, I'm here and I've got Laura Arturo as well, who's our lead analyst on this particular study. So with regards to the topic at hand, the question oftentimes is, why do we do this? And the best way that I can frame that is a city or a municipality will oftentimes conduct audits, which will tell you what has occurred in the community. It is backward looking, if you will. This is the flip side of that coin, and looking forward to understand different decisions we may have in the current period or the current budget, and how those decisions may play out into the future, really order of magnitude, if you will, from a level of accuracy standpoint. And what we're really aimed at is understanding sustainability dynamics. So instead of just balancing the budget for 1 year, if we continue to play it forward, and there may be a number of assumptions and levers that we need to look for, how do we arrange our finances in an order that would provide for the community sustainability across the different funds that we're looking at today for the long term? So our models will look out not only for the short-term 5-year outlook, but also for a longer 10-year period into the future. And I'll show you a little bit in a second interactively. I think that'll really help the amount of scenarios and different evaluations of assumptions that we can conduct within the model that will provide the most value to this particular process. Additionally, the last bullet point here, we do like to true up these models from time to time based on current conditions, as they're often changing quickly on us, and different assumptions so that we can get the best outlook possible. Now I'll go through just a couple key framing data assumptions and sources just to put us all on the same page before we jump into the different funds that we analyze. Across the board, we use the 2020 audited financials as our starting point. It was a springboard for us to understand the current position of the city and the enterprise funds that were evaluated. Additionally, we were able to consider information with regards to the 2021 unaudited actual results as the fiscal year closed, and also the fiscal year 2022 budget as it was adopted by the city. We also had discussions with city staff and subject matter experts to to understand if there was any additional items that may be outside of the budget, but pertinent to this analysis. And the one that usually comes up is capital. If there's going to be needs in the future that we need to think about cash funding or debt funding, these models are very good at plugging that in and then understanding how that may influence cash flows in the future. Additionally, we conducted an analysis looking at expenditures in the past to understand when we budget, how do we spend in an actual standpoint against that budget so we can best calibrate the models going forward. And also had great discussions about expected inflation on salaries, operating expenditures, so that we could forecast in the future off of the fiscal year 2022 budget what our expectations are for expenditures in each one of these funds going forward. So I'll first jump into the general fund. The general fund's key observations and considerations, some of the unique aspects here that we analyzed and included into the model. GRU transfers. So the general fund receives a revenue source from GRU annually. In the fiscal year 2022 budget, it's currently $36 million. The expectation is that this would be reduced by roughly $2 million annually through 2027, which will bring it down to $26 million annually, and then it will hold flat at that point. Additionally, we were made aware that there are some capital investment needs. They're currently unfunded, but we have included them in the baseline plan in this model. They show up in 2024 and 25 in the rough magnitudes of about $24.4 million spread between 2 fiscal years, and they're assumed to be financed right now. In the model I'll show you, and I'll switch over to in a second, the long-term taxable value increases. So this is the underlying assumption. One part of how we get our ad valorem revenues is how much taxable values are growing in each year. We have made an assumption right now going forward outside of the fiscal year we know about, where we have good data, that those taxable values will increase at a long-term trend of 2.5%. But I'll show you the sensitivity of that particular assumption. Fire assessment revenue, that is a critical revenue input into the general fund as well. We're currently modeling that at the current levels of revenue and holding that flat throughout the forecast period. And then finally, one other assumption that's key to the model, there is a county homelessness contract. It's currently an expenditure to the general fund. It is forecasted to sunset. It's about $1.5 million in 2025.
Can I ask you to hang on just a second, Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Santos.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. What is a county home? I'm not sure what that contract
It's a Grace.
Is it the Grace Marketplace contract? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Santos. It might be a good idea if we're going to move this forward and give it to the to the full commission to refer to that as the Grace Marketplace contract, because it doesn't flow through the county. So, thank you.
Perfect. Absolutely. I'll make a note to change that. So with that, I've switched over my screen now, and what you're seeing here is a live screenshot of the general fund model that we have created for the city. And I'll walk you through a demonstration of some of the different levers that we can pull up. But before I do that, the intent here was this year to create these models. We will also be at the end of this process transitioning access to these models to city staff as well, so they can run scenarios at their will to look at different dynamics that may come up throughout the year that often do. Just to orient you to this particular model, there's a couple key dynamics that are showing up on the screen. So in a tabular format up here on the top, we've got the really key drivers that will be changing today. So the operating millage rate in each fiscal year going forward, which was just adjusted in fiscal year 2022 to 5.5 mils on property taxable value. We've then got the growth in each year going forward. You can see the 2.5% that I just referenced annually from 2023 forward. And then we have the cash flow deficit and surplus in each year. I'm going to go down next to these graphics. And these graphics are going to very much, the way to think about this is just like your own personal bank account. So off to the right here, we have the cash coming into the general fund shown in the blue line. And in the gray line, we have the cash coming out of the fund. And if there's an imbalance between those two, like there currently is shown in this view, this is what I would refer to as a diagnostic view going forward, where we've applied the current assumptions and standpoint and played that out in time. We see the gray line is exceeding the blue line in future years. And then if we look over to the operating balance, this is the amount of cash in the operating fund at the end of each fiscal year. What we'll see on this particular graphic is when there's a deficit, we're pulling from fund balance in order to balance that budget. And so pulling this forward right now, what the current projection shows is that we have fund balance in the current fiscal year that's very close to our policy target shown in the white line. But moving forward several fiscal years, we're showing a negative trend on the fund balances that are precipitated by the structural deficit here. And again, part of that is due to the GRU, the reduction in revenues coming in to this particular fund, which lead to right now with a projection in the status quo, which shows that fund balances would be very close to zero or depleted by fiscal year 2025. And so starting with this baseline, what we can come in and look at is a couple different scenarios that would potentially impact this fund's future going forward. So the first one that I often get asked to look at is the taxable value growth. So as I mentioned right now, we've got that at 2.5%. We've had substantial increases above that in the past. The real estate market is pretty hot right now. So one thing we could potentially look at is adjusting that. And I'm just going to go to another screen real quick and show an order of magnitude change on that. So I'm going to double that to 5% in the long term to see what that potentially does to our financial future. And I'm going to come back to this screen. I'm going to calculate that through. And so with this, it's going to run through and calculate that. This has updated the bars now with that particular change. I'm going to go in just for a second and add in a baseline right next to this so we can see this side by side. And make this a little bit bigger on your screen. So what's shown right now is in green is where we just started. And where we started was a 2.5% assumption in taxable value going forward. You can see that trajectory had a much sharper decline in the future. With the 5% change, the slope of that line is now less than it was before. And so what you can see now is instead of a zero balance in 2026, like I had mentioned in the baseline, we're actually showing a slightly positive balance. Although I would say with this particular plan, that doesn't completely get us to a sustainable level going forward. We do continue to show deficits going forward and decreasing. So I'm going to just re-baseline this and let me come back. And I'm going to put this real quick back to 2.5% to just show you some other dynamics that are at play in this particular fund. So bear with me for one moment. We'll come back to our baseline in the model, and I'm going to take this out. So now we're back to our baseline. One of the additional items I was asked to take a quick look at in this particular one was just the effect of that GRU transfer. It is one of the larger dynamics that's in play for this particular fund, that continued reduction ongoing. So now back at our baseline, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that flat going forward. So instead of removing the reduction 2 million a year down to a lower level in the future, I'm going to hold it at the $36 million budget level going forward. And so what this particularly shows in this graphic is a scenario, again, now you have $36 million annually coming in. And this particular, we still have a drawdown in fund balance going forward, but the slope of that and the timing at which we deplete fund balances has been shifted out much more into the future on this particular plan, as compared to our baseline scenario, which I'll bring in just for 1 second again, which is shown again in the green. So that particular assumption from a quantifying standpoint is a particular one that does show the growth of that structural deficit going forward, that creates the gap, if you will, that's reducing fund balances going forward. So I'm going to just bring us back to our baseline and bring the GRU transfer back to the particular level that's expected with the $2 million decrease in the future. One of the other items that we can look at potentially here would be a revenue solution in this particular fund. And so right now we're showing the millage rate up here in this particular table at the 5.5 mils going forward. I know there was an adjustment in 2022. Often I'm asked to quantify the magnitude of millage increases in the future should that be an option on the table in order to bridge this gap or balance the cash flows going forward? So I'll just come through here in 1 second and add in a millage change in the future. I've run a few different scenarios in here. I'm just going to try a 1 mil right here in 2024, which I know is a lot, but the magnitude of that particular decrease is pretty large with regards to the ongoing sustainability that's ongoing forward. And so what you can see in this particular scenario, as we run that through with a 1 mil increase in 2024, as that deficit really starting to widen in that year, that will add additional long-term sustainability to the fund. We would show, an ongoing deficits in the future that would repair. So likely at that point, if that were to come true, oftentimes it would either require an additional millage in the future or some other reevaluation of ongoing cash flows. Now, that's a long time in the future. So oftentimes when I run these particular models, we're really concentrating on the next 5 years so that we can understand the near-term dynamics. And then as we were to update this analysis at some point in the future, you'd be able to wrap in new assumptions and understand the different dynamics that may be in play. And that picture in those last 5 years may look quite a bit different. The world that we live in does seem to change at an ever faster rate. One other just item I'll mention before I'll ask if there's any questions on this particular one and move to my next fund to review with you all, with just with regards to capital, one of the best uses of these models, and I'm just going to go back real quick and take out this millage increase to get us back to a baseline. But one of the best items or uses of this model is looking at capital dynamics. And so within the CIP, I'm going to go here real quick. I'd mentioned we had some unfunded items that are out here in the future. We understand the city is also considering potentially a new fire station that would be on the order of $10 million. I'm just going to plug that in real quick into this particular model as a $10 million item here in the future, which would be in 2024 for just the purposes of looking at it today. I'll run that through the particular model. And what that's going to show is, if I compare it to our baseline real quick, is going to pull down the balances a bit more because we've added in some assumed debt service associated with that. But what we can do is then look at how to particularly balance that equation. And so given that that's a fire expense, I could look at a fire assessment solution. And I'm going to go in real quick and update the fire assessment to increase by 8% in fiscal year 2024. Now, what that will do is essentially get us right back to the same baseline because we've added in that expenditure, but then right-sized the fire assessment to pay for the ongoing debt service of that. So again, just trying to show you some different flavors with this particular model of how we can process different decision points that may come up in the city from time to time and understand how we may balance the scales between revenues and expenditures on an ongoing basis. And so I'll stop talking for a second, but if there's any questions, happy to answer those here on the general fund. And then I also want to go back to the presentation and show you the other funds that we've looked at.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Chair. Concerning the fire assessment, it's my understanding that is there a study going on right now to look at the fire assessment and changes to how that's calculated? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that supposed to be back for the FY, to be able to make changes for the FY 2023 budget, or would that be for the FY 2024 budget, those changes?
The hope was for the 23 budget, but I'm not sure on the timing, maybe 24.
Cynthia Ramos, Finance Director. We're currently conducting a study to update for the FY23 budget, and a more comprehensive study will be conducted with looking at different methodologies for the FY24 budget.
Okay, so the different methodologies would not be in FY 2020.
At this point, no.
Okay, when is expected to have that study back for the updated methodologies?
We will be finishing up the study, starting the study for 23, and then updating for 24 after that's completed. So probably later in the fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. I just wanted to say, I really like this tool. I know I've often, a couple budgets back, I've said, well, what if we change this? And I'm sure you all hated me at that point because you have to go back and scramble and rewrite stuff. So I'm actually really excited about having a tool like this. I know that we said that that staff would have access to it. Is this something that we would also have access to if we have ideas or want to just I don't want to suggest, I don't want to call a meeting to then suggest something that you're like, no, and you push a button and you show me why it's dumb. I'd like to be able to run ideas, and I'm sure we all would, to be able to run ideas without asking dumb questions. So we could do it ourselves in our office, running the program. Would that be accessible to us?
Kyle, I believe this is based on so many users, is that correct?
It is, yeah. It's got, in the particular one, I believe, 5 that are allocated for it.
So it's mostly my budget staff that would have access to it, but the idea behind this was that Kyle and his group could be presenting to the full commission and running those scenarios in real time for you, kind of like we're doing today.
Still helpful. Okay, well, good luck to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Chair. And I think we can also meet with budget staff and have times and go over different scenarios as well. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And also, this is available to us, it could be available to us at a meeting like this, where we can, that's the benefit that this committee can offer going forward, or one of the benefits, is that we'll be able to model things in real time in a committee like this before it goes to the full commission. And I want to remind everyone that the modeling that we're looking at and that is in the backup, this is based on making no changes. So if anyone looks at this and says 10 years from now the city's going to be this broke, that makes a lot of assumptions that are probably inaccurate assumptions. I just wanted to put that out there. So, Mr. Stevens, we don't have any more lights here. Go ahead, please.
Absolutely. So next we'll look at another enterprise fund that we evaluated, the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. There are a couple key planning observations in here, a little less numerous than the general fund. With regards to solid waste fees for services, the city historically has had a policy of changing that fee revenue level, if you will, every other year, 5%. And so we've maintained that throughout this model's forecast, beginning in fiscal year 2022. Another thing that I'm highlighting here in solid waste is the contract that the city has for services there. Our understanding is that there are some negotiations are happening right now with that current contract. That is something that when it reaches a level where we understand the financial dynamics, is really good to plug into one of these models where we can play that forward with the anticipated annual expenditure amounts, and then understand the dynamics with regards to the current level of revenues that fees provide against that new change in the contract level. With the current model that I'll show you in a second, we are showing the current contract that's in place. So there was not data at the time of analysis to incorporate with regards to the new solid waste contract. And then additionally, we understand that there was a potential for some commercial consolidation to take place on the solid waste side. But at the time of this analysis, again, there weren't detailed financial projections that we could enter in the model. But again, this type of a modeling platform is really good for something like that, where we can toggle in a scenario or a particular change in time to the level of services that are provided or the annual expenditures that come with those, and then play that forward to see how it impacts the fund and really understand if the fee increases that have historically been conducted and are projected in year, the 5% every other year, would support that sustainably. So with those couple assumptions, this is a diagnostic view of the solid waste fund. And let me just get my laser pointer. Where is it? So the laser pointer right here. We've got our 5%, which happens every other year. So you can kind of think about that effectively as 2.5% a year, if you will. The revenues and expenditures right now in this particular fund, with that assumption and the current level of expenditures that are in our fiscal year 22 budget projected forward, we're showing sustainability in this fund fundamentally. So the revenues and expenditures, as you look at these two graphics, they're very close to one another in each and every year. So we're not seeing a large gap evolve. When we look at the operating fund balance, the current projection going forward there is we have some balance in there above our policy target. We're going to pull that down a little bit. Then as the 5% start to catch up, the withdrawals will become less and less, and we'll be at a sustainable level going forward here. And so the key takeaway here is that at a current service level and expenditure, we're showing a sustainable plan going forward. But again, we do have some unknowns out there with regards to changes in those expenditures going forward that'll be good to incorporate in here to ensure that sustainability is preserved over the time period. So I'll move to my next fund, which is the Regional Transportation Enterprise Fund, RTS. RTS, there's a couple key planning observations and considerations from this. This is a bit of a unique enterprise fund in the sense that you have a number of different revenues and expenditure dynamics occurring in here. And so on the revenue side of the equation, we have the UF and the Santa Fe hourly contracts, which are contractual revenues for the bus services provided on those campuses. We have entered in the most recent contract information available for the next 2 fiscal years. And then outside of that, we projected for UF an annual increase of 5%, and for Santa Fe, a 3%, which is very close to the current contractual relationship that's in place. Additionally, within this enterprise fund, there's a number of state and federal grants to flow into this particular fund. We have assumed that those grants will be available going forward. They provide for 2 critical components on the expenditure side. They provide operational support going forward, and they also are assumed right now in this particular model to provide for all ongoing bus purchases in each fiscal year going forward. So kind of said another way, unless we have that funding, we're not buying buses, but with that funding, we have assumed we can buy buses going forward in each fiscal year. So in this particular fund, we're showing a negative situation in the diagnostic view going forward. We have the 2 contracts up above here, the UF hourly with the known adjustments through 23, the assumption going forward at 5% for UF and for 3% for Santa Fe. What we currently show in this particular fund is that expenditures are expected to be over revenues in each given fiscal year going forward. If we go over to the operating fund, what this shows is right now in the projection, a little bit of fund balance as we go into fiscal year 2022. The projection for the end of fiscal 22 is to have a little bit of positive fund balance, but then going forward, we're showing a negative trajectory here where fundamentally revenues are below expenditures going forward, which is why you see the bars decreasing here. So that can't fundamentally happen. You can't go negative, but it shows us the ongoing trajectory here of expenditures over revenues. And so historically, this fund has had support from outside sources from time to time, which have trued it up, as well as these ongoing increases in the operating rates to ensure that the fund is sustainable going forward. I'll just switch over for a second on this particular one to show you the model, because I do want to, when I have the opportunity to show you an example, and in this particular one is a model that does show kind of a sustainability concern going forward. One thing we could potentially look at here is we've got the contracts in place for those operating rates. They're the largest revenue source coming into this fund. Like I mentioned, they've been historically moving up at kind of an inflationary level. I'm just going to calculate for a second in 2024 an increase here of 30%, which I've gone through and looked at in the model. And what this will do is bend those cost curves back to a place where we start to get to a sustainability paradigm going forward. And so by increasing in this, not that you could necessarily increase it in that year, just shows you again order of magnitude estimates of how far those revenue sources are off from providing this ongoing balance with expenditures going forward. And so with this increase applied, the revenue lines start to balance in this fund. And what we see is kind of going forward balances that are increasing here to kind of a minimum target level that we would like to have in this enterprise fund going forward. But in the near term, because we have a fixed contract, it does show that we would have a balance in 2023 that would be down a little bit, and then this increase would be able to start to to bridge the gap, if you will, between revenues and expenditures. So with that, I'll move on to the next enterprise fund.
I'm going to ask you to hold on for a second, Mr. Stevens. Commissioner Santos.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The ARPA funds and the CARES Act funds, are those accounted for in, because that was, I think, like 14 million or something like that?
Yeah, so that's why you're seeing the fund balance for fiscal year 22.
Okay,
Yes.
so that is 14 million already accounted for
Yes.
with ARPA dollars, okay.
Yes.
And then, as far as the infrastructure bill that passed, and maybe, I don't know if you'll know, but like in terms of the, are there expected to be significant amounts of, capital helping to purchase buses that are as part of the infrastructure bill? I mean, that's one thing I know we haven't budgeted is capital for RTS, but I don't know if you all know anything on that bill and, okay.
So those funds are not eligible for the buses. It's a separate, I'm saying the correct thing, correct? Yes. So RTS received separate funding, and that's outside of the ARPA funding that you're speaking of. I assume you're speaking of the 32 million?
No, I'm talking about the
Oh.
infrastructure bill that passed
Oh, so I can't speak on that then.
and
Sorry.
the help with that in terms of capital. And do we have any expectations of what we might receive from that or heard?
Cynthia Ramos, Finance Director, we haven't received those details yet. We're still waiting on that.
Okay. And this, correct, this is not budgeting anything for capital, is that correct? These current estimates?
So we're assuming that,
Or,
we're assuming that we will continue to receive grants, and
Okay.
within those grants is where you see your capital for your bus.
okay.
Yeah.
And then the fees that were being charged to UF and Santa Fe and the county, those currently do not cover the costs, or how does, do you know? And maybe I should talk to RTS more about that, but,
When you see it as a 10-year model, no, it does not cover all of the expenditures.
that those bus
within
routes
the-
costs. Okay.
That's correct.
And today, do they cover the operating cost?
I don't want to say for sure, but it's historically been showing a decline, that it's not covering all the costs within that fund. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
Absolutely. The next fund we'll take a look at is the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. Within the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, there are a few key dynamics that have been assumed. So again, we have a 5% every other year increase that begins in fiscal year 2022. And additionally, for the out years on this particular one, there are no planned capital investments going forward, which would be a key consideration as we think about the future on stormwater. So just going over to the diagnostic view, the current outlook of the stormwater fund, you can see the 5% increase each other fiscal year that's coming into play. We have then forecasted out the expenditures, which are at this time just operating expenditures against those revenues. This particular fund shows sustainability going forward in this current view of the model. Now, the caveat that I would say here is if there is any additional capital that would come into play, that would likely, use some of these excess reserves that you see building in this plan going forward. We're showing some reserves building up that could potentially be used for capital that would be unplanned. In my experience, when we have stormwater funds, oftentimes over a period such as 10 years that we're looking at here, there's unplanned capital events that may happen that require funding. And so that would be one thought that would come up. And if any additional capital needs were to be anticipated, they could be entered into this model to understand the sustainability dynamics going forward. But as it stands, the current revenue, if it's inflated each and every other year, 5%, would provide a sustainable solution to provide for those operating expenditures and potentially a little bit of capital in the future here. But any large capital events would likely precipitate a larger increase in the fee. The last fund that I'll cover today is the building fund. Within the building fund, there's just a couple key planning observations and considerations here. So there is some legislation in this particular one that I'm always concentrating on when I build these models and run the forecast, which is House Bill 447. That put limits on the amount of fund balance that can be carried from each fiscal year to the next fiscal year. In that particular legislation identifies an average operating budget of the previous 4 fiscal years for this fund as the maximum amount that can be carried between fiscal years. So I'll show that as a key consideration and assumption as we look forward. And then I always mention when we look at these particular funds that, we're really dealing with in the building fund a particular revenue source that's dependent on economic activity and building permits being the key one there. We have high levels of activity currently. We're forecasting this forward right now at the budget levels for 22, which is a bit of a lower assumption than what we realized in the fiscal year 2021 actuals. And then the fees here are really cost-based, and they're set by a rate study from time to time, which is another key consideration. And so we've projected out the current revenues going forward, but it's often my experience that cities will look at those fees from time to time and make adjustments over time in order to ensure that they are providing enough revenue to cover costs. So just a quick outlook at this particular fund. We've highlighted kind of keeping the revenues flat going forward on this particular one at the fiscal year 2022 level. What that shows in this particular scenario is, in this kind of status quo, if you will, is that expenditures would be expected to be a bit higher than revenues going forward at that fiscal 2022 projection. The fund balance situation would show us right now a little bit over our statutory policy from a cash standpoint. We would show those balances being drawn down a bit, but this doesn't necessarily cause me too much concern in this particular fund from a sustainability standpoint. Likely, if the city were to experience this trajectory going forward, a couple of things would come into play. As I mentioned, first and foremost, it might be an evaluation of fees that we're charging to make sure they're at full cost recovery in the future. That would potentially bend the revenue curve up. Another item that's always a consideration here is on the expenditures. Oftentimes, if their level of activity decreases, there may be some temporary labor that's often associated with these funds, or contract labor that could be curtailed or reduced. They would balance part of the equation here on the expenditure. So it's not that I necessarily have as much of a sustainability concern going forward in the current outlook here, but this just gives us an idea projecting out at the 22 budget levels, how sustainable we would be going forward with the current level of revenues that are provided against the expenditures that are projected in fiscal year 2022. And we would show that sustainable through 2026 currently. So that is the end of the presentation that I have today, but I'm happy to go back and look at anything, or if any questions have come up as we've gone through the material today, happy to talk those through.
Okay, hang on just a second, Mr. Stevens, Commissioner Santos.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Chair. On that House Bill 447, do you know if that is being calculated with the actual budget, or is it our budgeted budget?
Do you mean the actuals in the sense of what we're actually expending?
Yeah, versus what we budgeted. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can't find positions and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding is the actuals.
It's actuals? Okay. I'm seeing nodding in the back too. And then for the building fund rates, I believe we had a rate study presented to the commission in the fall, right? And then the commission kind of delayed action or gave other direction. Do you know when that's coming back, or?
No, I don't. And I didn't have the information at the time to provide to Kyle, so.
Okay. So I guess that will change this, because there were some increases in that.
Yes, they could, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, come on up.
Thank you, Chair, committee members, and thank you, Mr. Stevens. I really like the diagnostic and forecasting tool. I love the idea that it's going to be handed over to management, and hopefully the commissioners can use it as well. I think it's missing a key component of city operations, and that's the utility. So for you to have a total financial picture, the utility should be included in that. Then you can see, as you manage debt and look for renewable energy options, you can see the big picture for the whole city. Thank you.
Ms. Ramos?
Cynthia Ramos, Finance Director, and the next step would be to bring this presentation updated back to you all and the full City Commission during a budget workshop to update and provide an opportunity for the rest of the commission to ask questions as needed.
Very good, thank you. And what I would say about the whole thing is, it is, again, a wonderful tool as long as we use it as a tool, and as long as we don't leave the room with the understanding that this is exactly what it is. the levers will be moved with recommendations from staff and by the world around us and by commissions for the next decade. It is not static. None of it is static. And anyone would not expect either revenues or expenses, et cetera, to be static. So it will move, but it's a tremendous tool, and I really like what we have to work with here, Mr. Stevens. So Commissioner Santos, another item.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To the point brought up by the city auditor, I mean, I think that is one of the issues of kind of not having the same on both sides. As far as GRU finance being a part of this or having similar tools, where is GRU on that? Because I do think it's one budget, but we look at it so broken apart that it causes, I think, issues and not how interconnected they are.
Mr. Chair, if the question is, does GRU do financial modeling? Yes, we do. We run 10-year models for a number of years now. That's essentially what we build our budgets upon. So yeah, we have such a tool. We've run it for years, and we essentially do the same thing. We look at different rate scenarios, different expense scenarios, to determine the same type of financial forecasting that I believe is. I mean, I'm not familiar with this tool, but some of the results and some of the intended observations look the same. We have sets of key assumptions that we start the budget out with, and then we massage those as we go through the process. So I guess in short, yes, we do this type of financial modeling already.
I understand you do. I mean, I've seen those on the 10-year. It's having like an interconnected system where, because it changes, I guess, I don't know. It's something I think we should look at, as how things are separated on both sides and just different software and different things. And I think it makes it difficult at the commission level when things are not at the same level. I'd like to move the recommendation.
All right, we have a motion, a second, and a comment from Commissioner Sacco.
Thanks.
We'll get public comment real soon.
Mr. Brenton, could I get you back, please? Sorry. Actually, never mind, it's fine, you can stay. So I will agree with the auditor's recommendation, and I think, being the youngest on here, that it is a frustration of the budget planning where it is one large budget, and I understand that there are two larger components, and that would be the city's utility and the rest of the departments of operating the city, and then other charters having smaller budgets to attach to it. But I think what Commissioner Hayes Santos was getting at is trying to think of an example. Let's say the city says it's going to suddenly, like, not allow gas, like, which we wouldn't do, but let's say we do that. So suddenly that policy or any modeling of that would affect GRU, or if, it's a terrible example. I'm trying to think of something that could be a financial decision in this building that would then have profit or deficits in the utility.
Utility tax.
Yeah, oh, okay, the utility tax, there's one. Where if we decide in discussions with the finance department here, this is what we plan to do with any of these items, modeling like that has repercussions on the GRU budget, but because the two models are not intertwined, you don't see it, no? I see Ms. Ramos like shaking her head, no.
With all due respect, what you've just described is a typical budget season. We bring assumptions to the table when we construct a budget. You, the commission, the legislative body, gives us separate direction. If the commission wanted to look at something like this, we'd run that through our model. We'd come out with the results as it impacts the utility, as I presume Ms. Ramos would, through her model. So obviously, there's benefits to each side using complex models. We use those now. In terms of bringing the results to you from different models for you to evaluate together, I'm not sure there's any difference in running that same information through a single model versus running it through separate models with the complexities that are designed for each side, because there are complexities for each one of these entities. that are impacted differently. So actually, I think you probably get a broader perspective having those same parameters or those same assumption changes run through models that are specific and are nuanced for each individual area.
Okay, thank you, sir. And that's why we have this committee, to ask questions.
Yep. Thank you. So, general government generally runs what general government does, and GRU finance runs what GRU does. And it comes to us, and you both have a perspective on it that seems entirely clear, but the group of 7 people that has to balance those things doesn't always have all the tools we need to balance. It is, I think, what we're getting at. And this committee, hopefully, working with staff, can help develop some better understanding of how not only this commission, but commissions 10 years from now can have the tools available to make better decisions before the dais, before we're voting on the budget. And we can have all the separate budget meetings that we want, and that doesn't necessarily get us closer. But some of the processes that we might be able to identify here might get us closer to making this simpler and more responsive for future commissions, and therefore for our neighbors. So I think that's what my colleagues are generally getting at. Some of what we have to work with is not the same as what you have to work with. So we're trying to get to a place where we all understand each other better. At least that's my hope. So let's open this up for public comment on the motion.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Nathan Scott. With respect to consultant report, this report was not originally attached as backup on the agenda. I had to request that it be added to the agenda as backup. So I'm thankful that it was, but again, my other comments, I think you'll see the concerns I had. Heard lots of virtue signaling about how great this is. I'm going to offer my perspective as somebody with the MBA in finance and a lot of experience working in financial management for Fortune 100 companies. The consultant report doesn't seem to provide anything useful, as it just restates basic assumptions on some graphs without any independent modeling, sensitivity analysis, or forecasts. I'm not sure why this rudimentary analysis and model couldn't be performed or developed in-house without the need to hire a consultant, but given the ongoing deficiencies in the general government finance department, the fact that you would spend more taxpayer money on something on this so simple doesn't seem to surprise me at all whatsoever. At best, this seems to be a visualization tool. It's a simple Excel template and graphs with baseline assumptions. Okay? They created an Excel spreadsheet model. Wow. How innovative. I think well-managed municipal governments were already doing this 30 years ago. I know I was on Excel. Diagnostic views. I'm trying not to laugh at what was presented. I mean, that's how rudimentary this is, but you guys think it's like the greatest invention since SpaceX. It's easy to bamboozle city commissioners who like to spend taxpayer money or like to waste taxpayer money. All this looks pretty and complicated, but it's not. It should be easy for competent city finance staff to do this themselves.
Can you stop calling our staff incompetent?
The fact that they haven't done so speaks to the complete lack of management oversight by the mayor and Gainesville City Commission.
So, Mr. Scott, I would ask that if you have criticisms, face them at us. and not staff
I'm not
members.
criticizing anyone. I'm stating facts.
Well, calling someone incompetent is criticism. I mean,
That's your opinion, and please stop regulating the content of my speech. GRU already does this modeling in-house for the utility, as Mr. Benton testified to. So why is city general government finance staff seemingly so incapable of doing this simple task themselves in-house, like GRU, without a consultant? That's a fair question to ask. That's not criticizing anyone. The old saying that fools and their money are soon parted comes to mind. This is the city commission. Just like we're not having competent management oversight of core city functions. And again, stormwater 5% increases with no capital expenditures identified, is that a valid assumption for the city to just
Time's up, Mr.
increase,
Scott. Thank
increase
you.
rates with no justification?
Thank you, sir.
How do you justify that? No, you interrupted my speaking time, sir.
You're done, Mr. Scott. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ward. I appreciate that. Your civility is impeccable, sir.
You're absolutely welcome, Mr. Scott. Thanks for being here today. All right, any more public comment? Mr. Scott, if you have public comment, there'll be more opportunities. Welcome, Mr. Shepherd.
Yes, my name is Donald Shepard. My comments is that I'm excited to hear this new transmission within helping our city commissioners and mayor make these great decisions. I've been doing this since 2008, trying to make sense of all of this. And I've went back to my old college days when I was a forensic officer and a police officer, and going back to the training I applied back then, which goes in line with all of this. There's something about a helicopter, about the expenditures of our fire station. I disagree with that with this time. We need to take and get helicopters to take and give our bird's eye view of what each department is doing. That there will be the great tool instead of another fire station. So the other comment I have is that we need to take and use this tool to help the commissioners and staff ease the workload that is transpiring for years. Because Purvis Gray, I could go on, Norman, naming a bunch of auditing, financing companies we used throughout the years, and we still have not have a balanced budget. We don't have an ideal of how to move forward. And it's all because of misleadership. It's all because of people not knowing the organization rules that need to be followed to lead us forward. Maybe this tool will help all of us to take and move forward at a faster pace so that we could have a great city once again. When I bring in a plastic factory, when I bring in the airport review, the number of things that I bring in as a new city mayor in 2023 and 22, this here will help the financial levels, which we've been showed here today, and these great people behind us that have been working, scratching this and that to take and get common sense of what to give to you so that you can produce to the public. That's a great thing, and I thank them and y'all for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Do we have any online public comment?
I think we might. If anyone would like to share a public comment in the Zoom meeting, you may dial *9 to raise your hand. If you are the caller with the number ending in, one moment, with the number ending in 3706, you may go ahead and share your comment.
Thank you, host, and thank you, Honorable Chairman Ward. I appreciate the opportunity to address the new Finance Committee today. For the record, my name is Brian O'Brien, and I would first like to thank the Finance and Audit Department heads for getting this Finance Committee separated from the Audit Committee. I think it's a great idea to have this heard separately, and I appreciate the comments that the budget will also be heard in this format. Respectfully, Vice Chair and Chair, Commissioner Santos, I would have to take exception, given your participation for years, Mr. Ward and Mr. Santos, of rubber stamping the problematic Audit and Finance Committee decisions while knowing that there was huge problems lurking beneath the surface, as evidenced by the multiple years, 4 years now, of significant findings. I think that it's no way to go about solving the massive financial problems to put the people that allowed the problems to fester unabated for years is a fool's errand. So this format is a good one. Once again, the leadership at the top is going to have to be changed in order to dig the city out. With respect to this modeling tool, every city of this size is using a cash forecasting tool, and then it essentially in this presentation, the young man from Stantec is using it as a justification to raise the taxes and fees on every service and tax in the city. I can see why you wouldn't want to announce your intentions to run, Mr. Ward, given that you just had a man put on a presentation to raise the taxes to 6.5 mils and every other fee and service in the city. It is noteworthy that there was never a discussion about tightening your belt, about cutting some things out, some of the nonsense and waste, like this presentation. Honestly, it sounds like Mr. Scott is aware of tools that can be used to show different scenarios at the desk, which I think is nice that Commissioner Sacco, being new to the commission, is interested in seeing how would cuts affect
Thank you
this.
for your
How
comment,
would-
Mr.
how
O'Brien.
would
Time's up.
raising
Thank
fees
you.
affect this? Thank you very much.
I don't see any other callers.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you. Chair, we don't have massive financial issues. To Mr. Scott's, I mean,
Send it through the chair.
what's that?
Just-
I'm not talking to him, I'm saying the comments that he made. I think these are relatively simple Excel projections, but I think that this highlights the the reasons why the city manager made changes to our finance, and we don't have enough staff. We don't have the staff that's necessary to be able to having to augment it with contractors, and I think this is another example of looking at kind of finance as an organizational together. How can we solve these issues as one city instead of kind of separately how we have in the past? So I think that's one of the things as we're looking forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I want to point out that one of the things I said earlier is exactly what happened. Rather than using this as a tool, we went down a road of, oh, this is what we're going to do. No, this is a tool. All modeling opportunities, whether it's a simple spreadsheet or something a little more advanced, is a tool to use to make good decisions with, so that you can see what might happen if you move the levers simply and quickly, rather than sending it back out to staff to be reported at another meeting. These are important tools to use. And if we allow ourselves to be boxed in to say, oh, you said you were going to raise taxes. Nobody said they were going to raise taxes. We used a simple modeling tool to see this is what happens if you do raise taxes. Also, we can see what happens if expenses go up. We can check and see what happens if expenses go down by using modeling tools. And of course, the expenses go down by cutting services, by changing some of the things we do. There are many ways to move the levers. That's what a modeling tool does, is help us do that. I don't want us to get boxed in because we're going to be afraid of somebody took a screenshot that said taxes were going to go up. We don't have the power to do that right here. We absolutely don't have the power to do that right here. What we're doing is looking at a modeling tool that was contracted to be brought to us, and I think that's valuable, and I would rather have more information and more tools than fewer. With that, bring this motion to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move on.
Next, we have public comment.
It's 816 still on there?
We got rid of 17, kept 16.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is 210817, Gainesville Regional.
816. It's all right. Well, we've already voted on that one, so let's move on to 16.
Item 210816, Gainesville Regional Utilities audited financial statements for the year ended September 30th, 2021, Finance Committee update.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Benton.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to give you an update on where GRU's FY21 audited financial statements for us today. GRU sent our preliminary financial statements to the auditor on December 16th. And so we are in the process of getting prepared to publish those statements. It's pending two pieces of information on pensions and retiree health insurance, which I know general government and their consultant are working very diligently. And actually, I think the delivery of that information to the actuary is imminent. Once it gets to the actuary, it'll take them about two to 3 weeks to prepare statements based on that information. They'll return that to us. We will then make adjustments to our financial statements based on the actuary's report. Update our financial statements. That'll take us, at the outside, 4 to 5 days. It'll then go to our auditors. They will take those updates in conjunction with the preliminary work we've already provided them and publish the report. There are a couple of ramifications for us in terms of the timing that this takes. Number one, we have continuing disclosure covenants that we've made to bondholders, liquidity facility providers that require us to provide audited financial information within 180 days from the end of the fiscal year. We also have a liquidity facility that expires early in April, that if we're not successful in negotiating an extension with the current provider, we'd have to do an offering memorandum and essentially bid it, which would require audited financial statements. Now, we fully expect, we have no doubt that we will make those, that the information will come back in and we will be able to make those 180-day dates and as well as get that in time to do the offering memorandum. But we just wanted to bring this information to you, for the sake of transparency, let you know where we stand and answer any questions if you've got them.
Any questions? Okay. All right, so with that exception, we'll just move this forward to the commission.
I don't think it's.
So do we need a motion on that? Commissioner Santos.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable us moving forward to the commission because it hasn't come. I guess this is going to come back to this board when those audited financial results.
Right, what they're asking for is to move the notification forward to the.
Oh, okay, I got you.
I apologize, I didn't understand
I
the question.
apologize.
Yeah. The recommendation is to forward this notification forward to the commission.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
Sorry,
yeah,
I apologize.
that's
Chair.
okay.
So moved.
Second? Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Public comment. Letter read.
Yes, I'd like to have the overhead before I begin on my time, please. We could zoom in on this section. And sharpen the focus, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, Nathan Scott. So in the wake of the state audit report, I hope that the Finance Committee would take what GRU presented very seriously. I mean, you can have sunshine meetings for busking. That's extracurricular, maybe well-intended, but this is one of the important things. It's seemingly neglected in terms of management oversight by the City Commission. So I hope that we give the attention that it's due, because if you notice, if we can go back up to the overhead, please. Again, if GRU doesn't get this information, it will not be able to issue its audited financial statements in compliance with its bond covenants. Okay? You don't want to have a breach of your bond covenants. We've already been downgraded 5 times in less than 10 years. Okay? So we need to pay attention, because this is important. This is important stuff that you guys don't like to talk about, because you virtue signal about everything other than what's important in core city governance. But this is important. So I hope, and it sounds like GRU is hopeful also that they will be able to get this information in time to meet their established deadlines under the bond covenants where the audited financials have to be issued 180 days after the end of the fiscal year. So again, very important item. I hope it gets due consideration, and I hope that the Finance Committee will state in unequivocal terms that this is a priority to get this done. Because GRU shouldn't be put in this spot by virtue of the issues that are associated with the city general government finance department and the problems that have existed as noted within the state audit. So you guys may not like what I say, but I don't think I've said anything at the meeting today that isn't accurate and doesn't fall squarely within the protection of free speech. I do take exception to you guys regulating the content and moderating my speech and wasting my time. But my primary purpose of coming here today was this, because if this doesn't get your attention, it should. This is important, folks. So instead of all these other things y'all like to spend time on, make sure this gets done. Thank you. And if you don't, I'm going to blame the people sitting here, the commissioners. Thank you.
Anyone online?
If you are in the Zoom meeting and you would like to share a public comment, please dial *9 and raise your hand. We have a caller labeled user 1. I'm not sure of your number, but you may go ahead and share your comment.
Hello, user 1.
You may need to unmute yourself. If you are waiting in the Zoom meeting, you may go ahead and comment.
Is there anyone else waiting there?
We'll go on to the second user number with the phone number ending in 3706. You may go ahead.
Mr. Bryan, sounds like that's you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman Ward. I appreciate the opportunity again to comment. Brian O'Brien for the record. Given the presentation that Mr. Benton just gave, telling you that the information from general government regarding pensions is not only late, but requires additional massaging of the numbers once it is received, I think that you do need to take this as a top priority. It's already been reported to us by both the Florida State Auditor General and your own dedicated professional auditor that you're in a high-risk position. The lack of internal controls adequacy leaves you open to risk of fraud and other financial problems. We have known about this for years now. Commissioner Ward, you were the person, along with Mayor Poe, who on June the 18th, 2019, would not allow the public to see the annual CAFR prior to your rubber stamping it and sending it on to Tallahassee. That is what raised the suspicion of financial mismanagement. Now we know from the last 4 years of state auditor review of the city CAFRs that this problem remains unresolved. It's critical that you pull this item, general government internal control over financial reporting audit, from consent tomorrow. As you are fully aware of the problem, and if it does not get aired in public tomorrow, you will be the person who is most central to the investigation as why it's not being discussed
Let's
in
focus on
public.
the item at hand.
Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Anyone else?
And we'll try again with the caller labeled user 1. There's only one caller in the Zoom meeting to share comments, so if you're waiting, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Hello, you may go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, this is Joe Beatty speaking. Good afternoon.
Welcome, Ms. Beatty.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Hello?
Ms. Beatty, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've been trying to comment since the item before that Mr. Scott was so rudely interrupted and chastised. And I just want to say that I wish that the commissioners and the chair, or in some cases it's the mayor, but right now it's you, Chair Ward, would listen to citizens trying to hear the message and not looking for words that you can cut people off and interrupt their free speech.
Ms. Beatty,
If
do you
you
have
would
a
listen to
comment on
what
this item?
Mr. Excuse me, I am talking to an item before when I was not recognized and not allowed to speak. And it is rude and wrong for you to cut people off, to have taken Mr. Scott's time. I was listening to
Ms.
him,
Beatty, we're
and he was
on
cut
item
off because you had
21016.
interrupted him during his speech. It is time that you all listen to your constituents, not just your neighbors, but we're your employers. And
Ms.
when
Beatty, are you
people
gonna
are
speak to
giving
this
of their
item?
time and trying to make the city better and help you make better decisions, at least have you listen
Okay, Ms.
to
Beatty's
other
not speaking to this
possibilities.
item, so let's move on.
You're going to cut me off too, because
ma'am, I am.
I was
Yes.
speaking to an item that I was not allowed to speak.
Ms. Beatty, we're not on that item anymore. We do have public comment, open public comment in just a few minutes, and you are more than welcome to call in for that, and we will look forward to it. Is there any more comment on this item?
Not at the moment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the commission? Okay. Mr. Shepherd, come on up.
Hey, thank you, sir. The people have spoken the true facts of what's happened within the last past years, but this is now. And what we need to make these changes is the tools of which we've been handed today to move forward. Cutting off people is a rude thing. You know what's been happening, but yet you're still doing it. Following footsteps of others is not a good thing. It makes you below them, and you are not below them. You're a man of prestige, and you need to show that in your actions. Therefore, I'm going to tell you as the people's representative, I know this for a fact because I've been out there. I've been in this poem since 2008.
But Mr.
Long
Shepherd,
before your
I
time.
want to hear what you have to say about this item.
This here topic here is something that has, as Mr. Scott has said, and I would take it to designate, that this here is all paperwork that now I see why y'all say don't keep the paperwork because it's going to be old in a few years. Yeah, it's not factual. That's why. I have this paperwork and I can bring it back, show you all this since 2008, all these records, and show that this has been an ongoing problem within our city. So if we can correct this, we can have the support of the callers in and the people that come to this podium. Why isn't the homeless people allowed to come in here? And I don't see why they're not coming.
Mr.
So
Shepherd,
I'd
let's
like
talk about this
to
item,
take it,
please.
bring it up to your attention that when I become mayor, these changes will be made and we'll have a better city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Anyone else in the auditorium? No, sir, we haven't finished this item yet. All right, anyone on the commission? All right, all in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Now, in just a moment, we'll move on to public comment.
If I may, just real quick, growing pains and learning more about the committee as we're in the committee. given the time, I think it might be a better suggestion to look at making it a 2-hour block.
Agreed, yes. Madam Clerk,
A
we,
2-hour
yeah, I
vote?
would always schedule this for 2 hours if it were. Yeah.
And if I could ask, Mr. Chair, was there a second to the motion to
Yes.
move the last item forward? Commissioner Sacco?
Yeah, it was Commissioner Sacco, thank you.
Thank you.
I will just take a quick moment to point out that the process that has long been published is that when we take comment on an item, it is for that item. And that's why we have an open public comment, is so that there's an opportunity to talk about the other things that concern people. I apologize if we missed someone's comment on an earlier item. We held it open. That comment didn't come through. Once we take action on it, it moves on. More than happy to hear a very valid complaint about that, and I will take responsibility for that in public comment. I would also say, though, we need to be careful about conflating various things just because we use the same keywords. I will also say that we do take this very seriously. That's why some changes have been made in the organization. I want us to do better going forward. We take this very seriously. That's why we're taking time out to talk about it today. So there you go. We accepted an agenda that had that on it. We're spending the people's time and resources to talk about it today because it does matter and it is important. Now, let's move on to public comment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nathan Scott. So again, Commissioner Ward, at the whispering, urging, and suggestion of Commissioner Sacco, you rudely interrupted me while I was speaking. This interruption took away from my 3 minutes of allowed time to speak on a important agenda item earlier in this meeting. It was extremely rude to interrupt me while I was speaking in an attempt to illegally regulate the content of my speech. And then you cut me off exactly at 3 minutes after wasting 20 or more seconds of my limited time with your illegal conduct. Asking the question as to why staff aren't capable is clearly a fair question for taxpayers to ask who are concerned about expenditures of taxpayer money. I'm sorry if you don't want to hear hard questions, but you can't regulate the content of speech that is squarely within the bounds of my First Amendment constitutional right. Commissioners on this panel should know that. But if you'd like to persist in testing these boundaries, it would be very easy to seek injunctive relief to prevent you from doing it again. Because I and others are tired of it. Mayor Poe does it. You've done it, Commissioner Ward. It's not acceptable. Again, there was nothing within the content of my speech, and I'm sure a circuit court judge would clearly agree, as Mr. Nee would. There's nothing that should have caused you to interrupt me seeking to suppress the content of my speech. You know, maybe it's the city commission that believes that staff can't do the work and justifies the need for hiring all these consultants. But clearly, we've been identifying problems, deficiencies for years within the finance department. We had Brazilian butt lifts, we had fraud, theft, and waste. You've had a lot of transition there, I get it, but you gotta quit making excuses and exercise your management oversight function, which is negligently being neglected by this commission because you choose to spend all your time talking about things that really, in the grand scheme of core city government, are being neglected. And that's unfortunate, as evidenced by the findings of the state audit report. So again, we need to have civility. Civility works both ways. Having a commissioner whisper in your ear because she doesn't like what I say, if you want to defend that in circuit court, we can go right across the street and do that. But I would reasonably suggest that you listen, as suggested by Ms. Beatty, to citizens like myself and others who are saying things. If it's offensive if somebody's using, words that are outside the realm of free speech, then you might want to moderate that. But I don't think there was anything inappropriate in my comments. You just don't like them, and you don't want the truth to be heard. Thank you.
Who's up next? Public comment. Mr. Mr. Shepherd, you want to take a crack?
Yes, sir. I would, thank you. My comment is not about any of this. This is comment about our sidewalks and roads. I'd like to know when we're gonna start addressing them, and the repairs of our city. I'd like an outlook of, an appointment to talk to the finance board. They gave me a phone number to call to make an appointment. This is not how it should be handled. When you come to the city commission office or the mayor's office and approach the city clerk's office or mayor's office, we should be given an opportunity to take and speak to them. They should be able to give you a calendar date of when they're open to speak to you. This didn't happen, but there's so many items that are on my mind that need to be addressed that I could spend an hour to 5 hours up here speaking about it, but it's not time allotted. Time allotted need to be moved to 5 minutes so that people can have a proper time in which to speak about the items in which they concur. And what else was there? The Grace Marketplace, that's a sham. That gentleman, John Carmichael, has been raking over the
Mr. Shepherd,
issues.
let's not make attacks on people who aren't here. Let's focus on issues, not.
You cannot address them, because when you address him here or out on the street, he just walks away from you.
Let's focus on the issues, not on people, please.
So, yes, sir. With that, I wanted to address the homeless people are not getting help as they should. And when I take and meet a woman on the sidewalk in front of Walmart, and she says that I've never been homeless, so what do? And I direct her to the city hall to get the help is what you're supposed to do, and to the human resources, and she still didn't get any help. So what is our city doing for our people? This is something I'm going to inquire to ask in the behalf of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody online?
I believe that we do. There is one caller waiting in the Zoom meeting. If you have a public comment to share, please go ahead.
If you're online in the Zoom meeting, now's your chance.
Hello?
Ms. Beatty, is that you? Ms. Beatty, if that's you, go ahead and speak.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to bring up how you're censoring speech. I'm not going to go over all the things that Mr. Scott said so well in this last 3 minutes that he had, but you did censor his speech earlier. You did cherry pick words out of what he said and didn't listen to the content of what he said. And then, even after he very civilly explained what was going on and explained how you are really violating his rights, Mr. Shepherd was up there, and you've now tried to control the content of his speech. I would venture to say that it's not up to you if he uses a person's name and he says something. He's free to do that. If he does something that violates that person's rights, that person has an opportunity to take action themselves. It's really not up to you to monitor our speech. And certainly you should not be interrupting during somebody's opportunity to talk and not give them extra time. You did cut him off. You did use Mr. Scott's time, and he was making a point that he was unable to finish, that the public would also like to hear his thoughts. And think about what citizens say to you. So it's not just for your benefit, it's also for the benefit of people that think about these issues and want to see the city succeed and do well and see you make good decisions and give you input to think about in making your decisions. That we have yet to see real thoughtful consideration over the past years. And but I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak again, even though you were thwarting my opportunity to speak earlier. And have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Beatty. Have anyone else online?
No other callers.
Okay, thank you. That ends public comment. I do want to point out that we had a lengthy discussion at this point months ago at the larger commission about adding ad hominem attacks to the sorts of things that were not acceptable during public comment. That's our process. If we're going to respect process, we should respect process. And calling staff names, and yes, incompetent is a value judgment name, that's an ad hominem attack that I'm going to ask people not to do consistently. Those are the rules. Those are the things that were agreed upon by the city commission. It's up to the chair to enforce that. And if someone comes to the podium and talks about anyone who is present now in a derogatory way, I would enforce the same thing. I appreciate your comments. You absolutely have the right to make comments that are within the rules of the commission. So thank you, Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think you said part of what I wanted to say very eloquently. The reason I think I had to tell you is, in my experience, folks who come from privilege don't often pick up on things like that, especially when it's referring to professional women of color. So when saying if there were competent staff, I find that highly offensive to very intelligent women who are working here and whose work and competence was under attack. Hence why I whispered in case you didn't catch it. I do appreciate you trying to keep decorum in our chamber and keeping us on task. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sacco. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Chair. Since our first meeting and under our city commission rules, the subcommittees make their own rules as well. I agree. I think we should schedule for 2 hours. I think we should probably look to schedule this a week prior to a commission meeting instead of the day beforehand. I think that might, I don't know what staff's thought on that or not, because that's kind of on agenda management and things like that, but it might make it easier. Okay. So that's one suggestion, that we schedule the week prior to a commission meeting. Two other changes I think we should make in terms of our rules here. I believe we should have the comment card system. I think that helps simplifies the process and makes it a clear process and stops the juggling. I also believe that we should only have in-person comment. This is an issue that we continue to have where I think it's a failure of kind of the phone system where people do get left off because they're not here. And if people are calling in, they think they can speak and then they get left off because some technical difficulties, I think that's not fair to them. So I think that is why I believe just having an in-person comment, make sure that everyone who wants to speak can speak and no one is left out, because it sucks. People should be able to speak and they're not. And I think that that people aren't able to speak when they're supposed to be able to speak. So I would move that we institute a comment card system and that we also just have in-person comment to make sure that everyone can be heard.
Exclusively for the subcommittee?
Yes.
Second.
All right, it's a motion and second to institute a public comment system and that, or a comment card system, and that that we not accept Zoom or otherwise electronic communication during the meeting. Is that accurate?
Just have in-person comments to make sure that everyone that gets through the technical difficulties that we've had issues with, and then we also request that this committee would be scheduled the week prior to a commission meeting.
Okay.
The secretary is okay with that.
Commissioner Stocco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other, I'd already spoken with the clerk about this, given that I do think the comment cards are helpful. It keeps a clearer record. It does kind of, especially in something like this where we're concentrated issue, and it's not a 10-hour meeting. So I'm very much in favor of those comment cards. I was worried about the safety of our staff, given those comment cards. A lot of folks kept coming up and asking questions, lowering their mask. So with the clerk, I spoke about an alternative system on how to collect those cards. Hopefully it'll be in place by then, but that we keep in mind that we might have to figure out how to MacGyver that next meeting if that system is not already in place for the safety of our staff.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sacco. And I will accept responsibility for not having talked about the comment card system beforehand. That is an accepted rule of the commission, and my consistent preference is to use the rules of the commission for committees of the commission. So, all right, all that said, public comment is open for this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Nathan Scott. So this is another problem in search of a solution. No, excuse me. Let me go back. Another solution in search of a problem. There is no problem. We hear you guys lecture about COVID. COVID's still happening, according to you guys. So now you want to suppress and restrict citizen participation for those who have emailed you. I mean, check your email. Because there's a person saying that they want to not attend meetings. They want to be able to attend Suburban Heights meeting virtually, the workshop. But now for a city meeting, you, on the same accord, you want to restrict and suppress public participation. It's unnecessary. I mean, there's two people in the room. It shouldn't require a lot of intelligence to keep track of who's here to speak. Speaking cards are very intrusive. It's got a whole laundry list of information. There's just no need of that. You guys are more concerned about suppressing and stamping out dissent and public that are bringing information to your attention, and it's not really for the orderly conduct of the meeting. I mean, I used to have hundreds of people speaking at the PSC. We didn't have speaking cards, and we certainly didn't shut them down at 3 minutes either, because we treated people with civility and respect. But just because you have rules don't mean they're illegal. And I think we're in a position, based upon some of the comments I heard subsequent to me speaking, Ms. Beatty speaking, that we're going to have to test that judicially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone else in the room? Shepherd?
My name is Don Shepherd. I'm speaking on behalf of the people and myself. And I did fill out one of your cards, which I think is totally stupid to take and be regulating a meeting with a card like that. If you was in a court, I could see it, but you are not a court. Therefore, and also I think that when a commissioner cuts off a citizen at the podium, that is against the ethics board committee also. You can look it up in the law book. It states in there that is against your ethics of the board to take and do that. When you took and signed in to being a commissioner or a mayor, these here are ethic rules, the regulations that you swore by putting your hand in the Bible. And this here, I've seen y'all do this. So I wanted to take and bring it to a point that we need new outlook of our city, and we're asking you to take and bring that to us. I asked a question about our sidewalks. Did I receive an answer? No. Did I receive an answer about the roads? No. Where in new agendas is this going to be attended to? We took and brought Philip Manning from the Public Works back to the city. And how did this public know that? They didn't. They're like shocked for me to tell them that. What? I thought he was designated to that. Well, there goes a thought process. no point of direction has been issued by our city commissioners, our mayor, towards moving forward. This meeting here today that our staff has brought to us is the first leadership I'm seeing within the month of January. This is something I want to see throughout the rest of the year till 23. This year is an action of pride. Being a mayor or a commissioner is an action of pride to be in that position, to take and have the knowledge in which I have and which I've learned through the commission and prior commissions and having these documents. They are the PDF of your interactions of moving forward. And therefore, I'd like it to be reviewed and moved back to a better for the land. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Is there anyone online we're waiting for? Okay. So I would point out, before we move on, this is the Finance Committee meeting, and I don't have detail in front of us for the list of which sidewalks and which streets are next on the work plan for Public Works. So you certainly have the right to ask those questions here, but it doesn't mean that we can immediately respond, because that's not what this committee is. So you're more than welcome to ask those questions, but I would say that expecting an immediate response on something like that is always going to be frustrating for you. So, thank you. All right, Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we vote, Mr. Neese, are the rules that the commission previously approved for holding meetings and that we want to employ here illegal?
The rules that you...
Yes, the rules that the full commission approved for our meetings and that Commissioner Hayes Santos pointed to in what we want to do here, are those illegal?
No, I think your commission rules are lawful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sacco. I will say that I'm going to take these in three pieces, because I'm not going to vote for the item on restricting to only in person. Our general practice as a commission is to take the online rules, so I'm going to stick with that. So that said, first we'll ask for a vote on the 2-hour meeting blocks. All in favor? Aye. Aye. So that passes unanimously, Madam Clerk. And use of comment cards at this meeting. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. So that passes unanimously as well. And restricting comment to those present. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Me. That passes with ward and dissent. Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor, or thank you, Chair, sorry. The week prior to the commission meeting, that portion as well, motion.
Okay. Yeah, so having this committee the week prior to commission as opposed to the day before, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously as well, Madam Clerk. All right, so we will, having conducted the business of the committee on the agenda, we are adjourned.